On this week's video talking about generative AI and innovation, I want to talk about how you can use large language models to provide alternative perspectives on your startup idea. I've been advocating for almost 6 months now that the right way for entrepreneurs to think about these tools is think about them as a co-founder on your team, not as the CEO, but as one of the co-founders. And as that co-founder, they can do a variety of things for you. You can have them automate routine cognitive tasks. You can have them take care of busy work for you. But I've also been saying that I think they also can offer additional perspectives. And generally, how I've been thinking about that so far, up till a couple of weeks ago, is basically helping you do things like brainstorming. You bring in an idea and it comes back with some complementary ideas, build upon it, that kind of thing. And I still believe Chat GPT is a wonderful brainstorm partner. And if you'd like to see more on that, I recorded a video on that, which you can watch after this one's done if you're interested. But a few weeks ago, I had Marshall Kirkpatrick on my podcast, and I've known Marshall for a long time. He is just an incredibly brilliant guy and continues to push the envelope on how technology and humans together can do more than either can do by themselves. And he really had a completely different and I think amazing take on how to think about generative AI as this thought partner. I'm going to actually show a short clip from that podcast and then come back and talk about how I believe this can be valuable in terms of applying to your startup idea. Aaron from Box calls it a late night brainstorming buddy, and I think that is like a relevant part of this sort of part of, okay, add perspective, different perspectives, complementary perspectives, things like that. And then I think to your point, it's less interesting, but it is huge leverage to just also automate those routine cognitive tasks. If you're comfortable, maybe one or two more of these sort of adding perspective things. Just times you've used it where it's been like, hey, this has really helped me, add to my perspective, a creative use.
Sure. Well, one example that perhaps feels less creative, but it feels really important, and I think it could be a good service to others who are listening here, is that when I reflect back on all the ways that I have used these tools, one of the themes that has come up is that several times I've been able to use it as a sort of a professional sounding board for interpersonal communication challenges. I've been able to say to one of these platforms, someone I'm collaborating with is frustrating me. I'm concerned that they're not communicating in good faith even. Or I think that they have some mysterious motivation that is not clear to me, and I can't take it anymore. And then after providing some context and perhaps some examples and some explanation of my role in a project and the other party's role in the project, on several occasions, Chat GPT in particular has told me, look, I think you're wrong. I think that this person that you're communicating with is operating in a very reasonable way, given their role on the project. Here's a way to understand the perspective of that kind of person playing that kind of function in an organization or in a project, and how they might be seeing this as a good faith way to solve common problems. And it has shifted my perspective 180 on some challenging communication, and I am so thankful for it.
I love that example. I've never tried that before, but I'm going to now, and I love that example. That is awesome, Marshall. All right, so this professional sounding board, I just love that concept, and literally right after the interview with Marshall, started trying a bunch of different professional sounding board type ideas myself, and I have been really pleasantly surprised with the results from it. I wanted to talk about two that work really well from my perspective. The first has been collaboratively creating an ideal customer profile for a concept And then once you do that, asking the LLM to show you some of the objections to adopting that concept that ideal customer profile might have. And so it's really that second part that, again, to me is this professional sounding board. Similarly, I think going back and forth collaboratively talking about how to create an MVP and what the right MVP for a given idea is based on what you validated and invalidated is a really great use of generative AI that I've been doing for a while. But recently, this professional sounding board, I've started to think about, well, how can you flag risky assumptions that you may have overlooked? And again, have seen some really great results there. For today's video, I actually want to walk through a prompt template to talk about this objections to adopting that concept. And so I want to walk you through the template. What I'm going to do is I will actually show this in Chat GPT just as an example. And this template works pretty well across the different LLMs. But I'll show you Chat GPT in a moment here. But I also will copy and paste this full template into the YouTube notes. So you should feel free to just copy and paste and take this and use this as your own. So I start, as I always do with these templates, trying to add some context for who I am and what my role is. I've actually found for this one, the professional sounding board lens here is often helpful to kind of talk about yourself as a consultant to startups. I will leave the soapbox to the side about should startups really hire consultants for this kind of thing or not. The short answer is no. But I think for the purposes of this, it's great to get effectively free consulting as this sounding board. And then you actually give it just a little bit of detail. Typically what I've done is I've actually gotten to this level of detail through other interactions with other prompts and models and systems that I built. But I end up with a startup concept, what the industry is, and what my ideal customer profile is. And what I've done here is I bracketed in the sample I'm going to use today. But you could obviously imagine replacing that with your startup concept, the industry that it's in, and your ideal customer profile. And then I ask it for feedback, again, this professional sounding board, along 2 dimensions. And again, I found the results to be absolutely incredible. So let me come over to Chat GPT now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in that template. The only thing I've done here is I've gotten rid of the brackets because, again, I'm just using what I showed you in the template. But you could imagine, obviously, replacing this with what your startup concept is, et cetera, right? So, and same with the industry, what your startup concept is, what your industry is, et cetera. So with that, I will send that and we will see what ChatGPT comes back with. Okay, so they're going to first starts by listing out a number of common objections and then a set of improvements for that. Again, the results are stochastic, so you may get different results than I do when you do this. But I think if you look through this, it's both a pretty good set of objections for that target ICP, as well as pretty nice ideas for how you could end up overcoming those. And to me, like most of these things, I think about these as a really good rough draft. But even with this kind of really good rough draft, this would be really helpful as a sounding board. And you can imagine continuing to chat with the LLM around this alternative perspective to get sharper and sharper, as Marshall talked about on the Agile Giants video. Hopefully this template is helpful for you. Again, if you're not a subscriber, I would ask you to consider subscribing. It means a lot to me when you do that. And we'll be back with more videos on how you can use generative AI to support your innovation processes. Thanks.